Hello guys, Szwimer speaking. Welcome to LJPCBM episode number 925, and today we acting to Finding DW, episode 4, from voiceover for voice actor to fisherman. Excuse me. And we'll be at this beginning in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hi, I'm Jason Szwimer, and this is a podcast about my journey to meet 7 male strangers who all have one thing in common with me. We all played the voice of DW, the little
Wow.
sister character on the popular kids show, Arthur.
Wow.
That's it? All you're giving them is a card? Did you even make that yourself?
That's me, in an episode called Happy Anniversary, or just Happy Anniversary. An episode where Arthur's parents are celebrating their anniversary, and thanks to Arthur and DW's shenanigans, everything goes wrong. The episode aired in May 2006. Wow.
Which I have seen before in PBS. Continue on.
4. In the last episode, I spoke with Scott Kramer, a YouTube creator who is an expert on TV shows and movies from the 90s and 2000s. I also spoke with Kathy Waugh, who was one of the first people brought on to develop Arthur from the book series. Speaking with them helped me acknowledge the existential question I'm trying to answer with this podcast. When I was the voice of DW, did I peak? Will I ever do anything more meaningful or significant?
I think it's fascinating to look back at yourself during this period because you had such an interesting experience.
That's screenwriter Peter Hirsch. He worked on Arthur pretty much from the beginning.
Both Ken and Joe would give me ones that they didn't want really. Like there was
Wow.
there was like a head lice episode, and you know they had a character named Moose Boy, and so we made him George. You know, there was one show we did early on about death called So Long Spanky, where
Wow.
DW's bird dies. So
Yeah.
anything they didn't feel like touching was going to be difficult. They just like give it to the new guy.
Eventually, he climbed through the ranks, becoming the show's head writer. Was there any responsibility there? Because I imagine that once you stepped into that role, the show had sort of taken on or had a reputation.
Yeah. I mean, my goal was really just not to ruin it. After, you know, at least at first, I kind of felt that I had been made captain of this ship, of this sailing vessel.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't my ship. I didn't own this ship. And I was very dependent on all the crew. My job was simply to get it around the coast of Africa in one piece.
So when you were writing stuff, did you consider the actors, or were you really just sort of doing it based on your perception of the characters?
Their voices would influence me.
Wow.
So I definitely heard their voices. And that was interesting because some of the actors, yourself included, would change. And all of a sudden there'd be a different voice and it would change the character in subtle ways. You know, we became very sensitive to never wanting to make DW sound whiny. We would get notes in the script to, you know, just make sure she doesn't sound whiny here. You know, it was interesting too because you do some directing when you're writing the script, but not a lot. And depending on the actor, we would put more in, like say this like this. But yeah, I mean, we were writing for the actors. It was a huge influence.
Yes.
I got cast as DW when I was 10, and I never ever thought about who was writing the episodes I was acting in. As I've mentioned in other episodes, I always saw playing the role of DW as more of an after-school activity than a job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're an actor, you're supposed to read the script and learn your lines.
Mm-hmm.
How was? May I ask? You can
Yeah.
edit it out. Like,
No, I
what
won't.
was your relationship to to playing her? Like, would you do something to get into character, or did she feel very familiar to you, or did you base your performance on someone?
I wish that I could say that I did any of those things, but
Mm.
truthfully, the reason why I got into voice acting, it was really kind of a fluke. I guess I wasn't a very professional 10-year-old. Unlike the former voice of DW I'm speaking to today, Oliver Granger. You're about to hear my conversation with the second person to play DW. But first, here's a word from our sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
Finding DW is independently produced by me, Jason Szwimer.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to support the show, the best way you can do that is by checking out my Patreon.
Wow.
Supporters like you help me spend more time doing what I love, creating this podcast for you to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, when you support this podcast, you'll gain access to exclusive bonus podcast episodes that feature full-length interviews with each person who appears on my show. Head to patreon.com/findingdw. That's FINDINGDW. No punctuation. There's also a link in the episode notes. Thank you very much. And now, back to the show.
Mm-hmm.
Here's
Wow.
what Oliver sounded like as DW.
My backpack has DW written on it, and that's not a D, and that's not a W.
And here's what he sounds like now.
So my name is Oliver Granger, and I was the second person to play DW on Arthur. I had the part from seasons 4 to 6.
Wow.
From 1999 to 2001.
Makes sense.
My God. Every time, the same thing happened to me when I talked to Michael. Like, I have chills from talking to you. This is crazy.
Wow.
It's funny, I always wondered if we all sounded alike.
Me too. I was the third person to play DW, so
Wow.
I actually took over from him when he couldn't play the part anymore.
Nice, I've actually never heard any other one of the actors that plays DW speak.
You didn't keep up with the show?
I didn't. No, I don't even know the difference between my seasons and the other seasons.
Carol Spinney, the person who played Big Bird on Sesame Street, talked about the double life he lived, where on the one hand, he was super famous when he was in his big yellow suit, yet incognito when he wasn't. It's the same way...
Even though Big Bird, the voice, Carol Spinney, the puppeteer at the time, passed away at the age of 85, 3 years ago. So yeah, it was great enough. Continue on.
voice acting. We can identify the voices we hear, but seldom think about the faces behind them. You would never imagine that Oliver had been a voice actor for children's cartoons. Who Oliver is as a person contrasts the voice of a 4-year-old aardvark girl perfectly. Your picture is definitely the most intimidating of any of the guys who've played DW. I'm looking at it now. You are in camo. You have like an awesome Chris Evans, Captain America or Thor beard. Mm-hmm. And I believe I'm seeing a bit of a... Is that a sniper scope?
So, which photo are you looking at? You're looking on Facebook right now?
No, I'm just looking at... It's the first photo that comes up if you Google your name. It looks like... You look like you might be in the army.
All of my pictures are so serious. Ah, yes, that's a hunting photo.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, that's hilarious, actually,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm looking at that now, and it has my hunting photo with the beard. That's a very full beard. I don't
Yes.
have that beard anymore. That's a very nice beard.
Wow.
Yes.
And then I see the photo of me as a child,
Yep.
and then I see Arthur's Perfect Christmas. Yeah, that's funny. No, yeah, that's I was hunting duck that day.
Uh-huh. But Oliver is a great reminder not to judge a book by its cover. Despite his tough guy exterior, he clearly enjoyed his time as DW and took the process very seriously.
Yeah.
Do you remember your audition story or what it was like when you auditioned? Had you been working before as an actor?
I do remember I think I had done 2 or 3 shows before Arthur, before the audition.
When I think about when people found out I was DW, it's kind of a blur. I remember feeling overwhelmed by people's excitement. People always chased me down at activities or in the halls at school, asking me to do the voice. I remember I had a go-to line that I would say in DW's voice. How come Arthur gets to do everything and I don't? How come Arthur gets to do it? No, still can't do the voice. Oh well. I wanted to be able to give the people what they wanted so they would leave me alone as quickly as possible.
Exactly.
Unlike me, Oliver had done a little more acting before he started playing the voice of DW. So he was more comfortable with the idea of being cast, even if it was for a role as big as DW. I asked him how people reacted when he got cast on a show as popular as Arthur.
Yeah, the show was big, but I guess, I don't know, maybe people were embarrassed to talk to me about it. I'm not sure. I mean, people assume that I'm embarrassed about it. So even now, people will come up and they'll be, you know, oh, can I tell them? Can I, you know what I mean? Or can I tell them? You know what I mean? So I don't know that many people spoke about it, or I don't remember that either, to be honest with you. I don't think there was much interaction with my friends about it. I know my close friends knew exactly what I was doing. They would, you know, there were a few times that they came to the studio with me to see it, you know, show it off as a kid. Yeah.
I've talked about this before, but since playing DW, I've always dreamed of one day working in the world of TV shows and movies. For Oliver.
No, I hated cameras. I knew I wasn't the best looking kid. And I didn't like cameras. I didn't like them pointed at me. I had done a couple of commercials and things like that, like on camera parts, and I hated it. It was so long. It was, you know, one more take. Whereas in the voice acting thing, I don't know if it was just who I was working with and there was a good vibe, but it was easier for me than being on camera.
Wow.
Do you think you would have continued working as a voice actor?
Well, I didn't know, because here's the thing. You never know, right? I mean, I change careers all the time. So you never know. But dreaming of it, no. But I have thought of I have thought of getting back into it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Just because it's something I liked as a kid and I thought I was good at.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it.
So we don't have those two things in common, but what we do have in common is that I've changed careers a lot too. That happened for me because A, I knew I wanted to find meaning in life through my relationship to work or a job, but B, until recently, I didn't know what career I wanted to pursue. Oliver has a different relationship with work than I do.
Life is short. You gotta experience all sorts of shit.
Huh.
You gotta be, you know what I mean?
Yeah, very discretion advised, ladies and gentlemen. Continue on.
There's experiences that I would love, you know, that I guess I don't have. I'd love to travel. I'd love to do those things. But yeah, I'm not driven towards work as pleasure, only for necessity. I've never wanted to get rich. You know, I've never had that.
In fact, Oliver lives life a lot differently than I do. So Wikipedia tells me that as of November 2017, you're pursuing a fishing career.
No, there's no fishing career. That's funny because you said, I just wanted to, when we were messaging, you said something about a fishing career. I'm like, I can't wait to get it. No, fishing is straight up a hobby for me. No career there.
For me, it's just like my favorite thing is talking to people one-on-one. It used to be like, you know, going to a bar with one person and just like shooting the shit.
That is my most hated thing. I hate that. I hate being in a bar talking to somebody. I hate that. I enjoy talking to you because for me, I was curious. I wanted to see what you sounded like. I kind of wanted to see. I don't even remember how many DWs there were. Have you ever caught a fish?
I have not. I'm a city boy. You and I haven't. No, definitely not.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, it's a cool. Have you ever shot a handgun?
No.
Okay. There's like there's certain feelings that you haven't experienced yet. You know, when people say, "How did you get into fishing?" It's the first fish you catch. When you catch that first fish and it hits the line, and you have that fight, and then you can let it off the hook and you can let it back in. It's a good feeling.
Interesting.
It's chasing the dragon. It's a drug.
Another thing we share is that we both didn't enjoy our time in school.
I was good at school until I realized that it was just complete and utter bullshit. And then I just stopped caring. I was good in school. I was honor roll. I was while I was acting into high school. I was honor roll. Whatever.
Yeah.
I never even finished high school.
Really?
Wow.
Never finished high school. I have a
Wow.
grade 10
Jeez.
education. Yeah.
That's super interesting. I think.
Yeah,
that,
I'm not embarrassed about it at all.
No, I mean, I don't think you should be.
Hmm.
I think
It's
that.
for some people and it's not for others.
Yeah.
Whenever, you know, just little. I mean, I never wanted to learn how many sides with the sizes of a side of a triangle and
Mm-hmm.
Pythagorean theorem. All that's man. I could not stand it. I
Yeah.
could not stand it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was very much the same. I felt like I was being taught stuff that I was very disengaged with.
It's probably like an old overconfidence thing on our part since
Maybe.
we had jobs when we were young. You know, I would say there'd be a little bit more desperation in me if I didn't have that, maybe in school. But
Mm-hmm.
I was curious what growing up after playing DW was like for Oliver.
I had a tough few years out in that, you know, the 16 to 22 zone in my life. That era was not. It was not. I guess I don't remember very much of it, to be honest. I was just kind of. Then I wasn't the model citizen, put it that way.
Yeah.
So that's what that was. But I held various jobs. I mean, I've always worked. I worked at Tim Hortons afterwards. I worked at a bunch of things. You know what I mean? I just like things that challenged me. That's what that was. But at the end of my career, I don't know. I wasn't interested in voice acting anymore. I was doing it, like you said, until I was about 18, but I wasn't engaged into it. I don't know. I hadn't done anything socially from the time that I was 12, you know, 10 or 12 until I was 17, 18 years old. I was working 3-4 days a week, plus going to school, playing basketball. I was doing so much. I just wanted to be, like you said, kind of like a normal person, you know, which you can be a normal person and do voice work. It's just that at that time it was a lot. We were probably both cocky little kids. I was a cocky little kid, man.
Wow.
Can you give me an example of that?
Oh, I was just. It's funny. I was just loud.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was just loud and outspoken, and it's taken a long time for me to teach myself not to be like that because I don't like that quality.
Wow.
But I was like that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have those qualities in me for sure, and I've had to. I feel like I've learned the hard way on jobs and stuff to be humbled. In the world, I'm not as outgoing as I am when I'm, talking to someone one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like for you it might be the same.
No, I mean I'm outgoing. Well, it depends. In business, yeah, I'm outgoing because now, I have to be. But
Yes.
In social situations, no, I definitely prefer to be alone.
I sometimes think back on my childhood and teenage years and think about how much I've changed.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there are changes you can't avoid, like
Yes.
getting taller or finding out you need glasses. But there are other things, personality qualities, that, to be honest, I wish I still carried with me. Oliver talked about being loud, cocky, and overconfident as a kid. I was too. It was grade 6 and I was 12 years old. I would go to these bat mitzvahs, which is a coming-of-age celebration for Jewish girls. They were these big parties with all your friends from school and family members of the girl whose party it was. Anyway, at the ones I went to, the girls' friends would often make speeches in front of all the people at the party, and I decided it would be a great idea to also ask to make speeches.
Mm-hmm.
I cringed so much thinking about what I was doing or why. I would do ironic speeches or stand-up, sort of. I probably made such an ass of myself. Except I know in my heart that the cringiness I feel is only in hindsight. At the time, I was just having fun, and I definitely didn't overthink it or stay up at night worrying about what I had done. And if anyone minded my obnoxiousness, they certainly didn't show it.
Yeah.
From when I was 10 to 16, I just didn't care what people thought about me.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back, I had an enormous sense of entitlement. If you would have asked me at that time what I thought was going to happen in my life, I'm almost certain that I would have told you some lofty thing about being a mega rich and famous actor, that everything was going to work out exactly as I had dreamed it would.
Mm-hmm.
I think on some level, that way of thinking came from the fact that through dumb luck, I ended up playing DW on Arthur. When I was a kid, I think I thought that's just how things worked, that if you wanted something to happen, the universe just made it happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I didn't try in school, because I didn't think I needed to. I
Still.
was entitled to good grades. I didn't try at anything because things were just going to work out, like they always did. And that way of thinking did not get me far. I do come from a fairly privileged background, so I say this in relative terms, but if I hadn't had to struggle, I mean really push myself, physically and emotionally, deal with just awful people, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And I like that person. It just took having that obnoxiousness and entitlement stamped out of me through life kind of kicking my ass in a way.
Life does that.
But it sounds like you've always sort of been someone who, is good at doing things with your hands, not afraid to try stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you kind of have a sense of where that drive comes from.
It's a tough question. I don't know, probably just stubbornness. Stubbornness of always wanting to be the best at something, which I never end up being because I'm a jack of all trades. Like you say, I like to work with my hands, but I get bored of stuff. I'm not artistic. I'm just still-handed, if that's what, yeah.
I've only had one time where I truly gave up on my dreams of working in this industry, and I'm sort of wondering what it is that keeps you out of it. It sounds like you've always sort of been doing things that really seem like they're not in this industry, and I'm wondering if that's a conscious choice.
Probably not conscious. I mean, it's at the end of the day, everything's for dollars, right? So if you can make money doing something that you love, that's great. But for a lot of us, not everybody finds the thing that they love. Love to do. I personally get bored of things very fast.
Yes.
So I guess I just juggled through a few things before I realized I could make some money doing something and that I was good at it, and I just go for it.
So can you tell me about what you're doing now?
So right now, I have a little shop in Ville Saint Laurent. I wrap cars. So I do lettering and digital printing, and we have cars coming in for chrome deletes and full wraps, color changes, protective film, things like that.
That's awesome. How did you get into that?
Yeah, well, that was it. I started working at a sticker shop, and then one day they had a wrap come in, and nobody was doing wraps then. I mean, I was 19 at the time, something like that, and so I was like, okay, let me try to wrap this car, and I wrapped it. I wrapped the whole car, changed the color in a day using big sheets of vinyl and an X-Acto blade. And so after that, they started getting more jobs at that company, and I started wrapping cars for them, and then I left a few years later and started out on my own. So I've been doing that ever since.
Right.
And I guess it's whether it's routine or whatever it is. I mean, I haven't grown my company into 10 employees and a big space. I maintain a small area. I don't advertise. I just have people coming to me. I have my regular client base, and I'm comfortable with that. And I know it's not always the best to be comfortable. So, and maybe that's why I juggle things so much. When I get too comfortable with something, I want to move on. So, but no, I would say, I mean, it's dollars and cents at the end of the day. Even in the acting industry, even in voice acting, there's a lot of people that struggle to make those dollars and cents. And so, I would say that I don't make a conscious choice to stay out of the industry, but I haven't been pulled towards the industry in any way.
Through having to overcome personal and professional obstacles, I finally realized that if money was no object, I would still be making this podcast. I don't know how else to explain it, except that it's like an itch that the only way I can scratch is by putting this out into the world.
Yes.
I know that's true, because at the time that I'm recording this, I'm not making any money producing this thing. A mentor recently told me, you just have to survive until your podcast is ready to be put out into the world.
Exactly.
As I said back in episode 1, I hope that this podcast opens doors for me in show business, but
which I did react to these first 3 episodes into episode 0 part of those reacts before. Continue on.
Don't have any firm expectations. Is there something that you would be doing if money was no object?
Oh, man. I don't know. I mean, I love fresh air, man. I know it sounds like I love fresh air. I'd probably be doing, if money was no option, I probably wouldn't be doing too much.
Do you think you'd be fishing?
I would be fishing. Yeah, I would be fishing. If money was not an object, I would be fishing.
And when I told Oliver about my passion for doing this show and about my big dreams,
you have something that you love.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, like interviews. So what if you get like the best interview in the world and you get to interview the queen, and what's after that?
Which did make me stop and think, because I've always been the type of person who has a million creative ideas. And I have this long list of things, hobbies, projects, things I've started and stopped because I've always been thinking about the next thing I want to do. But it's different with this podcast. Every time I start to think about another creative idea, or every time I see a job posting that I might want to apply for, I tell myself, no, stop it. Just work on this podcast. Finish the podcast first. So when Oliver asked me about what I would do if I did land a dream interview, it was the first time in a while that I thought about a time when this podcast is finished and I'm just doing something else.
Yes,
And
exactly.
that is as much as I'm going to entertain that line of thinking. I'm just going to finish this podcast. I want to talk to Michael and you first, more than anything, because you guys are the guys that are the only two guys that are older than me. I think that it's really important to talk to people that have had more experience than you. And I just, I'm trying very hard to grow up from this thing because I know that as much as this is my dream to do this as my job, I think I do need to shake off some of the chip I have on my shoulder of like the DW thing, I think in a way it's a little bit of a crutch.
Huh. I've been away from it for so long that I don't think about it much. Like when I, just because I knew I was doing this with you, doing the phone call with you, I started thinking back on, experiences that I had, and I remember a lot of them, but I had to dig them out. I don't remember it much. I mean, I guess it was like you said, it was kind of a blur, but I'm curious to see what these kids will be doing in 10, 15, 20, I guess 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm 20 years removed from it now, I guess.
Do you think that playing DW changed you?
Yeah, I mean, it changes everybody. Everything you do changes you. I don't know in what way. Never thought of it, but now, the way I live now, probably not. I don't think so. Besides the people that I know and the experiences that I've had, I don't think anything really changed me. No.
So you think you'd still be doing what you're doing even if you hadn't been DW?
Maybe not this, but something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd be working with my hands. I'd be, maybe I deal with customers all the time at work, and I'm the only person that talks to them here. So maybe I get my kick out of speaking then, and maybe I do my voice acting every day. I'm not sure.
As our conversation came to an end, I asked Oliver if he'd be interested in meeting up to chat more off mic. He said yes, in the most Oliver way possible.
We'll catch you a fish, man.
Yes, let's do it.
That's what we have to
Please.
do. That'll talk about things that'll change you. I'm telling you, the two things that'll change you is catching a fish and shooting a handgun. I promise you, it will change you.
I don't know about a handgun, but I'm definitely down to for the fishing
Wow.
for sure.
All right, well, it's 1 out of 2. That's good enough.
Yeah. Here's Peter Hirsch again.
But it's based on a real person.
Oh, it is?
Oh yeah.
Who's it based on?
Well, it's based on, I believe, Mark Brown's sister.
Okay.
And at one point we met her. And we said and Mark was like, "That's DW. That's the real DW." And
Wow.
she was just like DW.
I have chills. This is
Like,
very
she had a
crazy.
martini, and she was like, "Okay, everyone, I want you to sit down. We're gonna." It's like, and I didn't know that. That happened like 5 years in or something like that. I think she's such a, she's a really powerful little girl. She's a great role model. I mean,
Wow.
she's difficult, but like everyone should be so outspoken.
Do you think about your role in working in kids television in particular?
Yeah, I mean, when I would bring new writers into Arthur, I would tell them not to write for kids television.
Uh-huh.
Or if I was looking at samples, I'd much rather see a Friends spec script or a Seinfeld spec script or something like that. Because all those areas of classic kids television, we'd probably done those topics. So now I'm really looking for a human and even adult, topics. There's no kicking You're not going to see them have sex.
No.
Other than that, what, it's jealousy. It's so I would try and steer writers away from, writing what they thought kids' television was. And in my own writing, likewise, I was writing something that I found interesting or I thought would be funny or something. I didn't think about that the audience might be 5. Now, I do think about that a little bit more now. Well, both I think about how information is conveyed in a way that a really young person can understand it. And then I do think about what sort of, how do we want to shape society? And and that sounds very, very lofty, but I feel like you're either making things better or you're making them worse.
Yeah.
and doing nothing is making it worse.
Talking with Peter gave me such a deeper appreciation for how thoughtful the storytelling on Arthur truly is. It also helped me understand more about why it matters to have people who think deeply about the mental health of kids behind the scenes. Without Peter, Arthur may not have been as iconic as it was. Plus, he wrote episodes I actually performed in. So maybe it wouldn't have been as much fun for me if it hadn't been for him. So it was really special for me to be able to talk to him. Plus, I'm still shocked that DW is based on Mark Brown's sister.
Wow.
I'd never heard that before. This show is about finding all the actors who played DW, but now I'm also adding the goal of speaking to the actual person DW is based on to the list. Oliver's perspective challenged me. His insight on his pride about playing DW and how he doesn't overthink it were so helpful for me to hear. His thoughts on work not being about enjoyment, but rather only for necessity, were challenging to hear because it made me question why I prioritize finding joy and fulfillment through my work. But again, I'm not overthinking it. I'm going to keep working on this podcast first.
Exactly.
Whatever happens next, happens. So thanks for sticking with me. The questions I had when I started out, about whether or not I had peaked when I played DW, or how do I move on from this experience? I still have those questions with me, except at this point, I'm starting to feel different. I think after talking to the people I've spoken to so far, I'm feeling more proud of where I've been. I hope you enjoyed this episode, because there's plenty more where that came from. That's it for now. Thanks for listening.
So that was Finding DW episode 4. What do I think about this episode? I think it was amazing. So far, this episode was a success. And that was LJPCBM episode number 925. Hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned for the next one. It's going to be LJPCBM episode number 926. DW, the movie star, Finding DW episode 5. Excuse me. Till next time, so Jason Szwimer, piece of baby. We get more episodes, guys, be soon. Till then, say out. See ya.
Given unto me this life I'll never take for granted, and given all the time I failed to really understand it, I never sought to meet the maker of reality, the one who gave the life that which is always happening, but I tried all the time. Why was I the one to see things as I do under the moonlight and the sun? Perception pushed in, and the giver holds the key.